it up. Here we go.
Okay, cool. Your first homework assignment, Mr. Samsel, it was, what are 3 sports media storylines, whether it be national or local, that you are excited or you think fans should be excited about, or we should just be paying attention to this fall? I will let you begin first.
My third one is Coach Prime and how long that infatuation lasts with Deion Sanders and how he's treated. I mean, the whole Coach Prime thing and everybody calling him Coach Prime, even in the media. Like, I get that broadcast networks pay to be partners and whatever else, but I think he can be Coach Sanders when you're dealing with him. I think it can even be Deion when you're dealing with him. But if you're doing interviews and calling him Coach Prime or everything's Coach Prime, and we'll see if the bloom comes off the rose after TCU in the first game, or if it takes a couple games, or maybe he's a miracle worker. We'll find out.
I think, to me, that was the most talked about story of the national college football offseason by far. And I think, to me, I don't think miracles, it is very hard for miracles to happen in college football the way that it felt like they have been hyped up to happen. And you look at like kind of the roster makeup of that team, and there's not really that much growth and not that much production kind of there. So I'm not saying that I'm rooting against that, but if the wheels fall off that wagon, I'll be okay with that. That's all.
That's fair. That's fair. My second storyline, Big Ten Saturday night. Heard Noah Eagle doing Notre Dame this past weekend. He sounds like football. He doesn't sound offensive. He sounds older than he is. He's clean. He's smart. I mean, in terms of his broadcast, he's clean. He's smart. You hear him. You're comfortable listening to him. I think NBC has all the resources to do it well. They said they expect people to expect them to do it well. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, how they treat it, how they always talk a bigger game than they can possibly do. Oh, we're going to bring you the excitement, the passion, the college fans. No, you're going to broadcast a football game. So let's not go crazy and show me the cheerleaders and something's crazy that I don't need to see while the game's going on. But, they got Blackledge, who is football, who is college football and has proven himself. So I'm looking forward to what they do, and I think they'll do it well. I guess I'd be surprised if they don't do it well.
I'm interested to see how it shakes out as well, mainly from that standpoint of Sunday Night Football is culturally, at least for my generation, arguably more important than Monday Night Football. And can they make something out of it, of Saturday night now as well? Like, you look at their schedule and there are relatively good games. I think Penn State, West Virginia, while the logical choice kind of for the weekend, might not necessarily be the sexiest game nationally. And it appears on the pecking order, they're going to be number 2 behind Fox in terms of what game kind of trickles down to them. They've also still have the Notre Dame deal as well. So to me, I am excited. I think they're going to do it right. I do not think it's going to have the impact that they think that it necessarily could. I hope it does. I hope as a Big Ten fan, as a college football fan, it does, but I don't know if it will. It seems like they're going to do the whole kind of sort of game day shtick. Maybe not with the morning show, but they're at least going to have a studio set somewhere. I don't know where. It looked pretty cool. They released images for that, but yeah, I think that's the main thing, and I have something similar on my list as well.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing that I don't get, but I think that's just now the norm. We've talked about. I think
you have to.
Right, we've talked about viewership splintering, people, less people watching, but it's still the thing. You got to have a studio show, and you got to kind of be on set because that's what's accepted, or on site because that's what's accepted. But gosh, the investment in all that, to do all that, to move it, to set it up. To have your people travel from site. It's hard for me to believe. I mean, I guess they must be making money because they're paying for it, but yeah. And I think their studio show will be okay. I mean, their studio show probably could be more. I mean, Maria Taylor's more set for college football, it feels like, than the NFL, right? And I think Michael Robinson's going to be super on that show. And I think Joshua Perry, who came from the Big Ten Network, is going to be super on that show. So yeah, I think the only thing that scares me, and we'll see if I get interviews. The rules analyst stuff always scares me. Like broadcast networks to do that, so we'll see. And that's nitpicking. So I think
we know you're not the biggest fan of the
exactly. I mean, the other challenge for them is the schedule. Like you said, they're always second because I think at some point isn't it like Maryland against somebody next week, and they've got Purdue, Syracuse on the 16th. Like there's a couple.
Yeah,
There's a
it
couple
is
that aren't
soft
necessarily
in the
prime time games.
yeah. Hold on here. Let me pull up the schedule. So week 2, they've got you can get all this at stuffsummersays.com, by the way. Charlotte at Maryland is
Oh, is
there.
it Charlotte? That's right. It is right. There it is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
3 is Syracuse at Purdue.
Right.
So doesn't really get the motor going for me. I want to go back to the Michael Robinson point real quick. I think we're about to experience and see the explosion of Michael Robinson. I think this is the role that if you've watched, the NFL Network stuff that he's done, if you've watched, he does Good Morning Football primarily on the weekends. If you've watched any of that, he's talented. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Penn State fan. Not that I think he's very good. He's very energetic. He has the right just feel to him to bring to a show. I think we're about to experience kind of the boom of Michael Robinson, and now he's going to become a more household name. I think more.
Was
so
he
than
one of the ones on your
already is.
list?
No, he's not. But
Okay.
that is
Yeah,
someone
I
that
think
I'm excited about.
It's his work ethic. I mean, when he worked at the NFL Network, I talked to him about that, and he said, I'm the only one there without a gold jacket. Among these people at the NFL Network, everybody's in the Hall of Fame. So if they're going to get rid of somebody, it might be me. So I need to work my butt off and be ready. And I think he's genuine. I think he's, he does the charity stuff in his hometown, Richmond. He does. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. My number 1 is game day, and what happens to it, and maybe it should be the game day subtitled "The Continued Demise of Lee Corso" and what they're going to do with Pat McAfee. I was scared when they changed the theme song, although I guess it's going to be the same theme song with Darius Rucker singing it along with Lainey Wilson in the Cadillac 3 as opposed to
Those are your
Big and
people.
Rich.
You like that?
So Lainey Wilson's good. Darius is good. So yeah, Cadillac 3, seen and heard. So, but I just think Lee Fitting, who was the godfather of game day, has gone from ESPN. I mean, I think Bear and some other people really drive it week to week. But it was a cultural touchstone, and I think it still is, but I think its hold on that could slip a little bit. We'll see.
I think it matters on what games they go to, and if Kirk Herbstreit is true to his word in terms of we're not going to ignore the Big Ten. Because if they do what they did with the SEC primarily or relatively, they were fair and balanced. Like they for the last few years have relatively pretty much always gone to the right game, so to speak, when they should go to the right game. And I think that to me is what makes the show so strong. So kind of figuring that out really it is very important for them to get that job done properly. I am anxious about it. I will say I did have a question later on in the program about it, so we will come back to that point, Steve.
Well, let's hear your 3, baby.
My 3. Okay, cool. Number 3. I went local for number 3. Mercury Sports Group, which is Adam Brenneman's group. I'm very interested, excited to see what they kind of bring to the table. Shout out to my dear friend Corey and Sean, who their podcast got picked up by the Mercury Group. Very excited for them on that. To me, I'm interested to see how that expands and how he handles in-season coverage, because he's done a great job post or preseason, but that's when he can get the access, right? Like that's when he can get players want to talk and coaches want to sit down and talk. Can he do that in the season? That's probably going to be a little bit harder during the season because
unless they've got a special status and they're paying for it and have a relationship with the athletic department, which might get you some access.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Do you think we should pay for a Penn State golfer to come on our podcast?
I don't know what we could afford.
We could swing that. Anyways, I'm interested in that. I think that's something for fans to keep an eye on this fall.
That's a good one. Yes, nice.
Number 2 is it is very macro, but it is just one word, and that's Twitter. Sports has really clamored to Twitter. It has been the important part to Twitter growing. Pretty much every sporting event in the last however many years I've watched with a second screen, and that second screen being Twitter. What's it going to do? How's it going to work? And to me, if it keeps kind of going the way it is, like, we might lose that town hall feeling that it brought. And is it going to make sports as fun? I don't know. I still think people are going to hang out there, but even with little things like TweetDeck going away, or TweetDeck only going to paid subscribers, I don't know. I'm anxious about that. That is my big concern.
I think that's a fair concern.
And then, of course, number one is the new TV deal, and I think really it is we know that CBS is established in the space. They have done a fantastic job with every SEC game for the last 1,000 years. We understand that Fox is involved. So they do a fine job. But how does NBC, as we just kind of discussed, how do they grow, and how do they evolve into the space? Because NBC has been one thing and one thing only, the home of Notre Dame football, and now it's not. Now it is they're trying to get their footprint in the door. And I think the interesting thing to me that kind of hurts them is they really only have 1 or 2 games per week, and you really only get that content from 7:30 until they go off the air after the football game during the week. Now that NBC Sports Network is gone, like you'll get commercials on USA or wherever you're getting your Premier League soccer these days. But I don't know if they can carve out the niche that they want to, as we're kind of talking.
What do you think about football night in America on Sundays from the NBC side? Like if they did an expanded studio show in studio and treated it that way, right? Like, because they only have 1 game on Sunday nights, right? And in the NFL.
But I know, but I, as a fan, know that Pro Football Talk is a part of that empire.
Okay.
I know that PFF is relatively a part of that as well. That might be a little more inside baseball for the average fan, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if nationally, a college football lead-in show at the 7 to 7:30 hour could work the same way or Football Night in America works on Sundays, because usually there's at least 1 or 2 interesting 3:30 games that are still going on. I'm tuned into. When Football Night in America is on, that is where my remote control goes after the 4:00 window football game is on, because there's nothing else until that 8:15 kickoff.
Well, there's usually one 4:15 game waiting that struggles. There's one finishing.
Maybe
not several.
Yeah, but
I think you're right. I think NBC probably had to be the happiest broadcast partner that the Big Ten expanded to the West Coast, right? To get 4 more schools of halfway decent capacity, because this will be the only season when there's Charlotte, Maryland on NBC. I mean, they just won't have a dog like that any week, even if they're picking second, even if they're picking third. They shouldn't have a dog like that on the schedule anywhere going forward. They've invested in some insiders, right? Like, and hired a person or two, but I don't think that moves the needle on the TV side of it. It doesn't go any rankings. It just gives you somebody to say, hey, I'm from NBC, and they put some content online. They teach them to do a couple online features and some video. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair. I think the studio show in person feels like a must-do kind of thing, and I think it will be. I think Michael Robbins could break out whether he was in person or on a studio, though.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be better served in a studio than on site.
Do you know where NBC
is setting up
for Saturday?
I haven't seen it announced yet. I assume it's going to be near the Jordan Center. It's got to be near the Jordan Center somewhere.
Is it though, or is it going to be in the stadium?
Oh, it'll be outside.
You think it'll be outside?
Yeah,
I guess it probably does have to be.
Has to be outside. Has to be over there by where the radio did their stuff for years or whatever else.
But
where Big Ten does it and never gets a crowd. I mean, look where Fox did a couple of years last year and didn't get a crowd, right? They paid people to show up there and be the crowd. Sure. I honestly think people got a better chance at liking NBC's and being excited because Michael's part of it than Fox is.
At Penn State, 100%. I guess the only question is, like, if it is, what time is that going on air? 7, right?
Yeah, I think it's only. Well, I mean, that's the challenge. That's true. If it's only half an hour before, everybody's going to be in the stadium.
Yeah, I'm going like because even if the kickoff is at 7:45, I want to be in the stadium by 7. And I'm not going to experience that as a fan. Sure, there's going to be stragglers, but to me, it's a better product if it's down on the field. You know where they could put it? They could put it up where game day did in when Penn State played Ohio State the COVID year in the stadium. They could put it up there. I bet that's where they put it.
They could. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I didn't think about, and it's logical, right? You're not going to have fans half hour before the game. You're just not. You're going to have stragglers. You're going to have people looking for tickets. You know, people walking back home. So
let's put our ear to the ground and see if we can. We'll text some people and see if we can deduce that one.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's in the game notes yet. The game notes are out. I hadn't looked.
So okay. Those